Hello, dear viewers, friends, and all that. This is TBT, and today I'm bringing you my first Idiot's Guide here in ARK Survival Ascended. This guide will cover the early game of, the game. If you find yourself enjoying the video and find it useful, go ahead and stomp that like button, comment, subscribe, and please the algorithm gods so they will spread this video around the platform. It helps me out, and I greatly appreciate it. With that out of the way, let's dive in. So you just coughed up the 44 USD or whatever it is right now to buy ARK Survival Ascended and have been pleasantly surprised to find that unlike ARK Survival Evolved, it does not take up more space on your SSD than a Snorlax blocking the road in Pokemon Red version. You've also made sure that your computer is enough of a monster to run this absolute beast of a game. If this sounds like you, and you need some extra help, you've come to the right place. And today we're going to be covering the Idiot's Guide to Starting Out in ARK Survival Ascended. And this is going to cover up until about level 30, because for me that's when it really becomes more mid-game. This video will cover footage from only the island, since that's the only map currently available outside of mods. But the guide itself is applicable to most maps except Scorched Earth, Aberration, and Genesis Part 1. I definitely think there is a case for Extinction, but that's not really relevant. If you see my other Idiot's Guides, then you know that what I will be doing at the end of each segment in the video is I will put a little card that summarizes what I just talked about so that you don't have to spend the amount of time that I did combing through footage over and over again. Yep. Man, this turned into a doozy of a video. Anyway, spawning in. So at this point, you've taken the 5 seconds or 5 hours, depending, making your character and have either made the most beautiful person in the world or have created some vaguely humanoid eldritch abomination, and now you're wondering where you spawn in. There are locations all over the island, but as a general rule, I'd pick the south side on any of the 3 beach spawn points. And the reason why is that it's just generally easier and you have access to more of the early game resources and whatnot. Now, I say generally easier, but as is the case with every ARK game and every ARK location on every ARK map, easy is a pack of malarkey. But I will say I think it's a little bit easier in this time around. Now, that's my experience. Yours may vary. Now, as I said, you get access to most of the necessary early game resources while avoiding some of the nastier creatures, but this honestly comes down to personal preference. We will be covering for this guide spawning there. I'd avoid spawning in the northern sections unless you are a masochist that likes the cold, because you'll be dealing with the freezing cold in condition to the endless waves of direwolves and other nastiness. Down, at least on the south, the only thing you have to worry about are the endless waves of Dilos and a few raptors. And you can handle those pretty easily enough. First steps. So what do you do after spawning in? Well, the first thing is that you're going to start with that age-old ARK tradition of punching a tree until it gives you some thatch and wood, all the while marveling at the majesty of each and every splinter that is now captured in Unreal Engine 5. Then you can walk up to the nearest exquisitely detailed bush and start gathering yourself some berries and fiber. You're gonna need that to tide you over for food for now. Not the fiber, but the berries. Suppose you could eat the fiber. Ooh. Yeah, that's not gonna be fun in the morning though. That should set you up for some food. And now, once you've got some thatch, wood, and fiber, you're gonna go looking for some stone. How do you do that? Just walk around the beach and press E when you're near rocks. Once you've got some in your inventory, you should be able to make a stone pick. And that's going to be your best friend right then and there. Now, hopefully you've leveled up at least once, but it really doesn't matter because you start with the stone pick unlocked in your engrams by default. Once you have the pick, go ahead and smack a few trees with it, gather more thatch and wood, then go hit a big rock or two for some flint. You'll be needing this and some additional stone, which you will also get by hitting the rock. Yes, I know the hatchet does it better. We're getting to that. You gotta unlock the hatchet engram and make it first. And that brings me to my next point. What we're working towards here is the stone pick, followed by the stone hatchet, or axe, a torch, and the spears. It's these four together that, in my opinion, are really sort of the foundation for survival. If you really want to get technical, you could throw in bolas on there as well, because they're very useful for defense. But, yeah, your priority is get those four things made, to get a couple of spears made if you can, actually. Probably a couple of torches, too. Now, why are we interested in these things first? Well, I'm so glad you asked, curious voice in my head. The torch is obviously so you can see better at night, and also to keep warm, because in spite of looking like a jungle paradise even on the southern side, this island gets so cold at night that your nipples may or may not be cutting diamonds at around 2 a.m. At any rate, the spear is also pretty obvious. It's defense and hunting. Nothing says stay the hell away from me like a throwable pointy stick. And why the pick and the hatchet? Well, they're both harvesting tools, but they harvest different things in different amounts. Picks are great for harvesting flint from rocks, thatch from trees, and meat from corpses. Hatchets are better at harvesting stone from rocks, wood from trees, and hide from corpses. These two in particular are going to be your best friends from the moment you make them until you upgrade to their metal versions, which will then carry you through the rest of the game. And as I said, these four tools are going to be your foundation for survival currently. Also, be sure to unlock the small storage box and then gather enough wood, thatch, stone, fiber, and flint to start filling it. Once you fill it, make another one, fill it, and then make another one, and just do this process throughout your early game. Is just make storage boxes and fill them with resources. I stupidly only ever made 2, which was dumb. Actually, I made 3, but whatever. Should have been making more and should have been filling them. Also, make sure you're staying up on your berries and your water, because you will need that when you get thirsty. And speaking of which, if you get thirsty, go to the nearest river or ocean and just press E to have yourself a drink, because salt doesn't dehydrate you in this universe, apparently. But it does come with an over-the-top gulping sound. Also, having a water skin here really helps. You can go ahead and unlock that too. Now, you'll notice I've not mentioned anything about taming just yet, because even though you might be able to by this point, I'd recommend against it. Unless it's like a Moschops that happens to want one of the more mundane types of food or something. If you find one that's like, oh, it wants Mejo berries, and it's like a half-decent level, go for it. Yeah, get it immediately, because it's going to speed the whole thing up quite a bit. But other than that, we don't want to be... Well, maybe a Listro, but meh. But other than that, we don't want to be taming anything until we have some sort of shelter up, and preferably a sleeping bag or bed down. We'll get to that. What you should be doing until then, as far as creatures are concerned, is killing them. If you see a dodo, kill it. If you see a low-level Dilo, kill it. Or a high-level Dilo, for that matter. If you see a low-level Parasaur, I mean, you could try, but without bolas, it will most likely be able to perform the ancient art of running the hell away from you. If it's larger than a Parasaur, the chances are it'll be too much for you right now, so avoid it. It's important to note that things like Trikes have damage resistance from the front, and they will always try to be facing you, so bear that in mind. But anything you kill, harvest with the hatchet to maximize hide gains, or the pick to maximize meat gains. You can make a campfire and use some wood to cook up the meat that you've been getting, because yes, hatchets do still harvest meat, which is why they're generally better than picks as far as corpses are concerned. Right now, Moschops excluded, we want to be killing things, not taming them. The resources they give us are much more valuable than the creatures themselves at the moment. Setting up shelter. Alright, now we're starting to get ahead of the game here. By now you should have leveled up a few times, and that should make you able to start unlocking your first building structures. And thatch is, well, it is a joke, let's be honest here. A direwolf could sneeze on this and destroy it, but 3 little jokes aside, it is still worth your time here. It's cheap, and it does provide a little insulation against the cold, but, I mean, even if it can take about as much damage as a fly versus an actual fly swatter, so not at all. Thatch structures start unlocking at levels 4 through 7, so you should be able to get them fairly quickly. Pick a location near where you spawned that's close to water and is, of course, somewhat safe. and go ahead and start crafting those foundations. I'd keep it small unless you're playing with other people. If you're playing solo, a little 2x2 or 3x3 is just fine. It'll get cramped, but it'll serve you well. Right now, we don't want to spend our resources getting fancy. This is about efficiency. Build what we need and save the rest. If you're really cramped for space, you could make it a 3x3 or even a 4x4, but keep the build as simplistic as possible. A roof over your head and space to put all of your stuff, your boxes, your bed, and a few small crafting tables should be all you need right now. And you can always expand on it later or even upgrade it. And just a quick note, this is not your final base. It can be if you want, but right now this is about efficiency and efficiency only. Once you've got your shelter set up, if you've been doing diligently collecting your resources, you should be able to unlock and craft the following: a mortar and pestle, a sleeping bag, or better yet, a bed, and a water skin, along with some cloth armor. Get yourself kitted out and make sure you keep your durability on your tools up and take a deep breath. Have a zen moment and relax. Once you place that bed down, you're relatively set up, and if you die, you can respawn and find your way more easily. With that done, the next things you want are a preserving bin at level 18 and a bow with arrows at level 10. Yeah, I know that's out of order. Don't worry about it. Keep farming hide until you can get them both. You'll also need to unlock spark powder at level 6. You can craft with the stone. You can craft that with stone and flint at your mortar and pestle. You'll need it to power that preserving bin. The preserving bin will help you store those berries and that you keep gathering as you gather fiber as well as raw meat. I'd recommend unlocking narcotic at level 6, which can also be made at your mortar and pestle. You'll have to do it sometime soon, so it might as well be now. That's narco berries and spoiled meat for that. If you're high enough level, which you should be, start unlocking and making the hide armor set at this point. It's an upgrade to cloth and unlocks at level 15. Ah yes, Tames. So by now you've set up your shelter and are probably feeling pretty good about yourself, so it's time to get to the fun stuff, i.e. the thing that really makes this game what it is, and that is taming dinosaurs and other monstrous creatures. It's worth noting that you don't actually have to get everything mentioned in the previous section done to start this. I certainly didn't in my playthrough, but it does help. Now, if you're very low level, go ahead and make a club and some bolas, although make bolas anyway, which can be crafted in your inventory at levels 8 and 9 respectively. These will help you out a lot. You're going to use the club to knock things out in melee combat. Now, you can tame just about anything you find on the beach, but I avoid anything larger than a parasaur to start with. You will tame some larger things, but for now, and in the very early game, just relax. You know, right now, let's get something to defend your house and ride around on and gather resources. Now, if you're really good at the game because you played it a few times, then you can make that change and just go straight for a trike or something like that. Now, let's say you've gotten past level 21 and have some trank arrows, and in the interest of time, I'm going to lay out a list of creatures that I think are fantastic for early game from this point forward. I'll be doing an idiot's guide for all these as well as other creatures, so I won't go into too much detail right now, but just know that these creatures can last you well beyond early game, and I'd be much more choosy with levels with them. Anything past 60 is acceptable, but the higher the better. And yeah, this is also why I recommend avoiding anything bigger than a Parasaur if you just have the club and you can't get trank arrows yet. Trank arrows, by the way, require narcotic, see previous section, and regular arrows to make them. So just bear that in mind. Make sure you've been spoiling your meat and gathering those narco berries. On to the creatures. Triceratops. Ah, the venerable trike. You know 'em, you love 'em, and it still vexes me to this day that when one of these things is a match for a fully grown Rex IRL in the game, that is very much not the case. So I'm a little surprised it isn't stronger than it is, but that said, it's still a very solid early game berry and thatch gatherer, and it can hold its own in a fight. It is kind of tanky. It is pretty slow, but it does have a charge attack that it can build up and allow it to get a little bit of extra speed and damage. It has a saddle, which unlocks at level 16 and is pretty cheap for what it is. The trike also has damage resistance on its frill, which is very good for you once you tame it, but annoying while you're trying to do so. You gotta stick to its flanks, and of course, since its horns are on its head, it's going to try to face you anytime it can. It also cannot be bullied. Raptor. A very good travel mount for recon and exploration. They have pretty bad weight, but they are quick on their feet, so you can't carry much resources, but they'll get you where you need to go in a timely manner. And they make great scouts and guards. They also have a pounce attack and a pack boost roar that are a nice bonus for them. So this is really your first creature that can go out and fight, but in order to do so, you need to have more than one. They need that pack boost really, really badly. They don't have a whole lot of health, so they rely on getting in there with their fast attacks and doing a lot of damage very quickly to kill their target before it can mount any kind of resistance. They can run down almost anything, though, short of a galley, I believe. I think there are faster creatures, but I just don't remember what they are off the top of my head. Anyway, the saddle unlocks at level 18, and it is pretty cheap as well. So don't miss out on these. A lot of people do. I usually tame one just because I like having the speed. Dilophosaurus. Wait, really? The Dilo? Yeah, hot take. I know. And on paper, these guys are trash. But in large numbers, that's when the game changes. They can be a threat to players and tames alike, especially if you have a bunch of high-level imprinted ones. They are pretty slow, and they do about enough damage by themselves to make a Bronto think that it might have been bitten by a mosquito, and you can't even ride them. But they do have one specialty. They have a slow spit attack that is deadly accurate. I pretty much have to bait it to dodge it. And when that hits you, it will slow you down for 8 seconds, mess with your vision, and do a little bit of damage over time. So, yeah, combine that with something like another slow creature, and you can suddenly really mess somebody up or another creature if you have a couple of these around. Especially if you place them strategically so that it's not super easy to just see them coming. But, they're not good creatures, but they can be very easily tamed, very easily bred, and all that. So getting them and mass producing them is quite easy. And while they are pretty bad themselves, when you couple them with other tames, they can absolutely pull their weight, and much like the Stormtrooper, in mass numbers, they will just overwhelm you. The Moschops. Okay, this is probably fairly self-explanatory, and it's one of the best early game creatures for very good reason. The amount of resources it can gather, including fiber, is insane. Not only that, a high level one can hold its own in a fight against a lot of the beach-combing early game predators, as long as you're riding it. If you're not riding it, it'll run away faster than Courage the Cowardly Dog walking in on Eustace and Muriel. Anyway, moving on. It is a solid creature and can be tamed at any point in your playthrough if you have the resource that it wants, but the lack of a saddle and therefore armor, and the RNG on getting a good one that wants to be fed a resource that you have early on really hold it back. And in my opinion, they stop it from being the absolute best. The Parasaur. Okay, this thing is not as good at gathering as Trike or Moschops, but it's decently fast, not as fast as the Raptor, and it basically does absolute piss-poor damage. But it does have the alert system with its right-click and a C-roar to scare away enemies for a while. That, coupled with okay weight and stamina, and the fact that it can get around, actually do give it a lot of versatility for a creature that has a saddle that unlocks at level 9. Yeah, I wouldn't pass these up. They do have their uses, but there are creatures that generally do most of their jobs better, but you won't have access to them yet. Stegosaurus. Now, this, in my opinion, is the king of early game tames. Like I said, I'll cover it more in depth in its own Idiot's Guide, but this thing has damage resistance on its flanks, especially on its plates. It has a saddle that unlocks at level 26, which is fairly late game. But what makes this thing the absolute best early game creature is the fact that it can gather wood, berries, and thatch better than almost every other creature you're likely to run into right now that's on this list. It has a lot of HP and decent weight, not great, but decent weight to carry all that stuff you just picked up. What really makes this thing beat out the Moschops, in my opinion, is that it not only has the damage resist, but it also has a saddle for armor. So that gives it a lot more survivability, coupled with its pretty high health pool. and the fact that its normal left-click attack has heavy knockback. It also has a right-click that can root a target while causing damage over time. Basically, it locks them in place and bleeds them out. If you get a high-level Sego, the wildlife and even some other players are going to have a pretty bad day if they come into range of that tail. The only downside is that there's a couple. The first is that you are very, very slow, and the second is that you don't have the greatest stamina in the world while riding the Stego. That's really their Achilles heel, is their stamina, in my opinion. At least in my case, I've never gotten one that had good stamina. Still, when you're this beefy, you're really in no hurry to get to where you're going. As for other creatures, I'd avoid them apart from maybe trying to kill them for now. Definitely avoid the Theres and Carnos that are also common, unless you ever heard of good Trikes or a Stego or two. Remember, sometimes running away is the best way to survive. And if you're playing with your friends, you don't have to be the fastest runner. You just have to be faster than the slowest. Wink, wink. And as an additional note here, in ARK Survival Ascended, we now have wild spawning babies that appear everywhere. And this changes the game quite a bit. It opens up a lot of bold new possibilities for those, bold enough to take them. If you see an adult creature with a white heart symbol that has a creature's head in it above its body, that means there's a baby somewhere nearby, and it may or may not be attached to that creature. You could also just look around for a miniature version of that creature. Yeah. When looking for babies, sometimes it is best to just look for the baby. Babies will follow one individual adult around that they deem as their parent. Babies cannot be imprinted on or tamed as long as there is another adult of that species in their radius, although they will only follow one. Adults will protect babies viciously. Even Moschops will try and defend its young a bit. If you see a baby or of any creature and it has no adults around it, you should be able to walk up to and imprint on it, though you'll have to be quick because if there are none, it will immediately start trying to run away from you. If there are, you will have to tame or kill any of the parents that are around. So for this reason, I recommend aggroing the parent, since the babies will follow it and lure that adult away from any of the others before taming or killing it. Because following the parent into battle when you can't defend yourself is, of course, a great survival strategy for both of you. The advantage to taming babies is that if you have enough resources handy, you can imprint on them, provided they don't ask for something like kibble when they want their comfort food. They can ask for some pretty strange things, not as strange as the Rhinognatha, but we don't need to worry about that. But the benefit to imprinting them, if you didn't know, is that they will be stronger when fully grown, especially when ridden. I am a little confused if taming or killing the parent affects whether you can imprint on the baby or just tame it. It seems to cut both ways, and I've gotten a prompt for both from doing either one, so it's confusing. So let me know in the comments. What I do know is that if there are no wild adults around, the baby will run away from you, as I said, so be quick on the draw and press E as soon as you get the prompt to do so. And make sure they are well fed throughout the growing process, so you'll need to keep up with your harvesting of whatever they want. And if you can get their imprints done, you'll have a stronger creature than you would normally if you invest the time, and it is very well worth it to do so. We come to it at last, the final step. So if you're past level 23, you've got some tames, and you're ready to start thinking bigger. You're ready to take it to the next level. That means it's time to take your stone pick and start looking around beaches and rivers for smaller round stones, or if you found any on your adventures, an actual metal node. You'll know one when you see one because there'll be a darker colored stone with, metallic veins running through it. Not unlike the original ARK Survival Evolved ones, but instead of gold, these will be more like iron and steely colored, like an actual metal vein. At least the normal nodes, not the rich ones. I haven't seen a rich one yet, so I can't comment. At least not at this time. That being said, you probably don't have a creature that can carry a whole bunch of metal, so don't go ham on that. But what you do have is, and this is why I suggest the river rocks, is just harvest what you can, avoid the damn piranhas, which are always going to be a pain, and yeah, just go for the round river rocks, mainly because they're closer to your base. Now, hold your horses, because before you do that, you need to unlock 2 things. The Refining Forge and Smithy, both of which are at level 20. Once these are unlocked, go ahead and make them with all of the stuff you've been storing up. Place them down somewhere, wherever you have room. Put some wood in the forge, and then go looking for those rocks. They don't give you much in the way of metal, but you really only need about 40 to 60 pieces of regular metal so that you can make you need to make 20 to, what is it? Yeah, 20 to 30 pieces, 20 to 30 metal ingots. That's what you really need right now, because what you're going to try and cook up here is you're going to try and cook up the metal and like the metal pick and hatchet, followed by the pike and the crossbow, which unlock at levels 20 and 25 respectively. Yeah, they both, these 4 items unlock at 2 differing levels. Okay. Once you've made them, you can go ahead and replace all of your stone tools and your spears. You can't throw a pike, but a pike will still serve you well. And you can also upgrade your little base if you want to a wooden one, or maybe even a stone one if you have enough stone. But I'd honestly hold off on any stone or metal structures until you're ready to make your permanent home. But yeah, probably about now you're running out of space, so it will be time to make some expansions. And if you've made it this far, congratulations. You're pretty much done with your early game trials and tribulations in ARK Survival Ascended. Give yourself a pat on the back, and then buck up, because it's going to get a lot harder from here. Well, there we have it. That's my idiot's guide on how to survive and get started with early game from levels 1 to 30 in ARK Survival Ascended. Honestly, when you do this enough times, it becomes almost muscle memory. But ARK Ascended has definitely thrown me for a few surprises, even though I'd like to think I'm pretty good at ARK Survival Evolved, and I've definitely played my fair share of it with like 3,800 hours or something in it. Some ridiculous number like that. Anyway, I hope this video helps you, whether you're struggling with early game or not. If you found it helpful, funny, or any of the above, go ahead and stomp that like button, comment, and subscribe. And turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Give the algorithm gods their just due so this video gets spread across the platform. It helps me out a bunch, and I thank you so much for it. The only last piece of advice I can really give you is be prepared to die and always be prepared to learn. Like, one of the ways you get through ARK is go in with the open mind that you're going to learn how to play the game as you would any game, really. ARK isn't what I would call an especially difficult game, but it is a punishing one in that it will never fail to, if you slip up, it will usually ding you for it. So just bear that in mind. And also, go in to have fun. I mean, yeah, that's the point of the game, right? Anyway, this is TBT. I'm signing out, and I'll catch y'all on the next Idiot's Guide to ARK Survival Ascended.